Ja, in 3 minuten. 3 minutes. As it's early in the morning, the audience sometimes needs a little bit more time to arrive. So. Perhaps in the meantime, I can already ask my guests to take a seat in the first row here, the panelists. So I'd like to call Ms. Abida Mia to come to the Mr. Max Bangura. Yes, take a seat. Ms. Meike van Ginneken. Mr. Ales Bizak.
I love your colors.
And Yemi Knight. Okay, welcome everybody to this session on transboundary water cooperation and building peace through climate and security. My name is Dirk Krol. I'm the Executive Director of Water Europe, and I will be your moderator for this session, which, as I said, is about transboundary water cooperation, and advancing transboundary water cooperation correlates with regional stability and peace, and for protecting conflicts and areas impacted by the climate crisis. Transboundary water cooperation is often one of the few entry points that can help improve lives and build trust, and building climate resilience through transboundary water cooperation can therefore be a powerful entry point for advancing peace and security. Water cooperation also makes adaptation more efficient and helps to avoid maladaptation by reducing uncertainties through exchange of data, enlarging the planning scale, better prioritization of measures, and sharing costs and benefits. It provides a unique global, legal, and intergovernmental platform for transboundary cooperation overall, including in climate change adaptation. In this panel brings together the perspectives of members of the UN Security Council, transboundary water river basin organizations, government, civil society and youth, and transboundary water cooperation to share best practices on ongoing challenges. Yes, it is my pleasure to really introduce, I think, a great panel that we have convened here. We start here with Ms. Abida Mia. She is the Minister of Water and Sanitation of Malawi. Welcome. Then we have Mr. Max Bangura. He is the Deputy High Commissioner for the Senegal River Basin Development Organization. We have Ms. Meike van Ginneken. She is the Water Envoy of the Netherlands. Also welcome. We have Mr. Ales Bizak. He is from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Spatial Planning of Slovenia and Vice Chair of the Bureau of the Water Convention. Also welcome. And we have Yemi Knight from the Anchorage Climate Action Plan, contributor and environmental sociologist. Welcome to you all. I would like to start with an opening question and hear from you, from your different perspectives, how you think that advancing transboundary water cooperation correlates with regional stability and peace in the midst of the climate crisis. And I think the easiest is we start at the left-hand side and we simply move to the right-hand side. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Dirk. Good morning. So, in my opinion, when we are talking about the transboundary water cooperation, we probably all remember that in our primary schools we learned how water knows no borders. And now nowadays, when climate change is struggling us, we know that also climate change knows no border, and there is no safe place on the planet anyway. That means the first question today is quite rhetorical. That does not mean that we shall not seriously answer to it. And I believe that the transboundary water cooperation is sine qua non for contemporary integrated water resources management, and that we have to face it, we have to use it, and we have to practice it, because it has many, many positive impacts on our societies, economies, and environment. It helps to address climate change by enabling common risk analysis. The word is important, common, exchange of data, joint strategies, common programs of adaptation and mitigation measures, and fair use of water resources. It can facilitate financing, and it enhances the impacts of climate finance. This is also extremely important. So by doing all this, what I just listed, we are in fact reducing the possibility of political or even armed conflicts, as well as climate migration currents, which is also important, and increasing the stability and peace in climate vulnerable regions. So for these reasons, to end, more and more countries are cooperating in transboundary manner bilaterally or multilaterally, many times with the assistance of river basin organizations, which in the era of climate change are becoming more and more important structures. So to conclude, indeed, advancing the transboundary water cooperation correlates strongly with the regional stability and peace in the midst of climate crisis, and it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In many languages, we have the same expression. You need to repair the roof when the sun is shining. On doit réparer le toit quand il y a du soleil. Je moet het dak maken als de zon schijnt. The same applies to transboundary water. You need to have a dialogue, agree on conflict resolution mechanisms, and build trust in times of peace. I've worked on transboundary water cooperation in many basins, the Nile Basin, the Indus Basin, the Ganga-Brahmaputra Basin, the Gambia Basin. In all these basins, bureaucrats and politicians of varying riparian countries invested a lot of time and energy in establishing relationships when there were no conflicts. No conflicts related to water, and no conflicts on other issues. In most of these basins, at some time, conflict emerged. Large conflicts, small conflicts, sometimes about water, about an upstream riparian wanting to build a dam, about water allocation, and often conflicts that had nothing to do with water. About a border intrusion, about trade, about political disagreements. And suddenly water allocation issues were raised by one riparian as part of a broader conflict. In all these basins, the investment we made in peacetime paid off. We had means to de-escalate. The riparians continued to talk. The conflict did not turn into war. And it was never perfect, it was always messy. The transboundary basin committees never worked exactly as planned. But riparians kept talking. They kept looking for solutions together. Once in a while, one of the countries would walk away, but they would always come back. Because we invested in procedures for conflict resolution, and because we invested in trust in peace times, often just because people had each other's mobile numbers so they could send a WhatsApp. People feel the impact of climate change through water. They feel it because their houses flood. They feel it because their harvest is not as good as it used to be because of drought. They feel it because rivers overflow or disappear in dry periods. Climate change will put transboundary water cooperation under pressure. It will elevate the risks of water wars. But we've learned a lot in the past decades about building trust and establishing basin committees or basin organizations in peacetime. This becomes more important, so let's repair the roof and avoid wars.
very important message. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Yemi, as Dirk said, and I'm representing Barbados. I'm a youth delegate from Barbados. And so please bear in mind, I am a little nervous. This is the first time I'm speaking in this magnitude. But my answer is simple. The preservation of water, or the collaboration of the preservation of water and water usage helps us preserve and protect ecosystems and preserve and protect biodiversity. And by doing that, it has ripple effects. It helps subsistence farmers maintain their livelihoods. It helps young women and girls maintain sanitation, and so on and so on. We see peace being built within communities, but also across borders, where people are no longer are not worried about tensions and fighting and the usage of water and the pollution of water. We're all collaborating and living in synergy. And another thing is that if we can collaborate on water, cross-boundary water preservation, we can also collaborate on many other fronts: gender-based violence, issues of, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, but other social justice issues can be facilitated by using the mechanisms that existed when we do transboundary water cooperation. And that's it for me.
Très bien, merci beaucoup. Je voudrais vous présenter d'abord les excuses de M. Veta de ne pas pouvoir être parmi nous. Mais bon, par rapport à la question, je voudrais vous dire que l'eau est une ressource essentielle qui est souvent partagée entre deux ou plusieurs États, comme c'est le cas au niveau du fleuve Sénégal, au niveau de l'OMBS. Et lorsque ceci arrive, pour se mettre à l'abri, les pays qui se mettent ensemble pour assurer la gestion transfrontalière de leurs ressources élaborent un cadre cohérent de coopération permettant de se mettre à l'abri des phénomènes météorologiques exogènes comme la sécheresse et l'inondation, entraînant parfois des crises énormes. En collaborant ainsi, ces pays peuvent mieux se préparer, s'adapter au changement climatique, ce qui contribue énormément, je crois, à réduire les tensions. Je vous remercie.
So first of all, I'd like to excuse Mr. Betta, who could not be with us today. Water is an essential resource. It's often shared by several countries. When neighboring countries establish a framework for cooperation, they can address extreme weather events such as droughts and floods, which often lead to a climate crisis. By collaborating on the effective management of water resources, these countries can better prepare and adapt to these changes, which then helps to reduce tensions.
Thank you. My name is Abida, and I would say that the management of transboundary waters is increasingly becoming challenging, and climate change is likely to exacerbate these pressures, not only because climate change is a global issue, but also that adaptation will require an international response. Climate change events that are being manifested are intense rainfall that causes floods as well as more intense droughts in different regions. Our experience in the Songwe River Basin has been that the floods in the downstream of the river causes shifting of boundaries between the Republic of Malawi and the United Republic of Tanzania. This, combined with population pressure, economic growth, environmental degradation, and deterioration in water quality, exacerbates tension over water resources. All these can lead to conflicts between the two countries. It is with this understanding that the two governments joined forces to establish the Songwe River Basin Commission to ensure that there is international solidarity that prevents conflicts and ensures stability in that area. Again, the creation of Ruvumo River Basin Commission, which involves Malawi, Tanzania, and Mozambique, has brought peace and stability in those areas. And we have better working relationships between our presidents and the people in those areas at the moment. So, yes, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we already have a few key words that we heard in the first round. I think we've heard about the importance of collaboration and commonalities. We heard about the importance of timing, which I think is a very valuable point. We heard about the importance of preservation, protection, biodiversity, and the ripple effects that it can have also in the terms of collaboration on other fields. We heard about being better prepared, which I think is a very important point, and we heard about how it can, I would say, contribute to peace and stability. So I think a few very nice keywords to start the discussion. I'm going to continue with Ms. Abida Mia, and I'd like to hear from her about climate experiences cause devastating consequences to both nature and people, and transboundary collaboration can help countries to join forces and better address those impacts. What instruments are available in Malawi for cooperation in shared basins?
Thank you. The instruments that are available can be categorized according to their purpose: planning, operational investment, and observation. The following instruments are available for cooperation in the shared basins: commissions for the management of transboundary water resources. Within the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, there is transboundary unit in the Department of Water Resources responsible for management of all transboundary water and aquifers. Malawi is a signatory of the revised Southern Africa Development Community Protocol. Malawi is a signatory of UN Watercourse Convention. Malawi uses integrated water resources management policies and strategies at the moment, promoting a win-win water investments through coordinated development and management of water, land-related resources to maximize economic and social welfare in an equitable manner without compromising the sustainability of vital ecosystems.
Thank you. Then we continue with a question for Mr. Max Bangura. I think we need to so the Senegal River Basin Development Organization is a leading river basin organization. What have been key benefits to the member states in creating the River Basin Organization, and how can River Basin Organization advance peace and climate security?
Merci beaucoup. Pour la gestion transfrontalière solidaire et concertée de son cours d'eau, le fleuve Sénégal, l'OMVS s'est doté d'un arsenal juridique à nul autre pareil pour démontrer que l'eau, en plus d'être un facteur de paix, contrairement à d'autres régions, est également un levier de développement économique pour ses pays membres. En créant l'organisation, les pères fondateurs de l'OMVS ont voulu d'abord lutter contre le cycle de sécheresse récurrent, entraînant des variabilités climatiques sévères, mais le faisant, ils ont bâti un cadre de coopération exemplaire et un vecteur d'intégration pour leur économie. Ainsi, à travers un programme d'investissement régional cohérent, l'OMVS a relevé plusieurs défis de développement dans les secteurs aussi divers que variés. Ainsi, dans le domaine de l'énergie, l'OMVS a construit au moins 3 barrages, le barrage de Manantali, le barrage de Felu et le barrage de Guina, totalisant une capacité totale installée de 400 MW, qui a permis de produire et de mettre à la disposition des sociétés d'électricité des pays membres une énergie propre, bon marché, au profit exclusif des populations. La construction très prochaine, je l'espère, des barrages de Kukutamba en Guinée et le barrage de Gourbassi au Mali étendra le réseau interconnecté de l'OMVS dans le haut bassin. En plus des grands barrages, la mise en œuvre d'un programme ambitieux d'électrification rurale a permis de donner de l'électricité à plusieurs villages dans le bassin. Dans le domaine des aménagements hydro-agricoles, la réalisation du barrage de Diama a fait passer les domaines irrigués aménageables dans le bassin de 10 000 à 375 000 hectares et stopper l'intrusion de la langue salée qui pénétrait jusqu'à 200 km en amont. Ce barrage a également permis de couvrir les besoins d'alimentation en eau potable de Nouakchott, presque la totalité, et d'une grande partie de Dakar. Bon, je le dire sous couvert du directeur, du coordinateur adjoint du PGIR qui est là. On n'a pas cité le PGIR, mais le PGIR aussi a mis assez d'infrastructures à la disposition des populations dans les 4 pays. Ça n'a pas été dit, et je le dis ici en passant. Dans le domaine de transport, on a un projet de navigation qui est actuellement en cours. Ce projet constitue une priorité pour les États membres. Il va rendre le fleuve navigable de Saint-Louis au Sénégal à Ambidedi au Mali. Ce projet constitue un véritable vecteur d'intégration et un meilleur facteur de développement socio-économique du bassin. L'ensemble de ces interventions contribue pour l'OMVS à la promotion de la paix, à la sécurité climatique et constituent des mesures d'adaptation et de prévention des conflits dans la région. Je m'excuse.
The OMVS, through the united and concerted cross-border management of the river, has shown that the Senegal River, in addition to being a vector of peace in the region, also constitutes a lever for economic development in our countries. By creating the OMVS, its founding fathers wanted to fight against recurring drought cycles leading to severe climate variability. But above all, they wanted to build an exemplary cooperation framework and a vector of regional economic integration. Thus, through a regional infrastructure program, the OMVS was able to meet the challenges in several areas of activity. In the field of electrical energy, the construction of the Manantali Felu Guina dams on the Bafing, which represent 400 megawatts of generation, made it possible to produce and make available to electricity companies and member countries cheap electricity for the exclusive benefit of the populations. In the very upcoming construction, I hope, of the Kukutamba dams in Guinea and Gourbassi in Mali, it will make it possible to extend the interconnected network in the upper basin. To these large dams, we must add the ambitious rural electrification program, which has made it possible to provide electricity to several villages in the basin. In the field of hydro-agricultural developments, the construction of the Diama Dam increased the irrigated areas suitable for development in the basin from 10,000 to 375,000 hectares and stopped the intrusion of salt water, which penetrated up to 200 kilometers upstream. This dam also makes it possible to cover the drinking water supply needs of the populations of Nouakchott and a large part of the populations of Dakar. In the field of navigation, the navigation project, oh, sorry, no, there was another thing. In addition to this, the PGIR also added a significant amount of infrastructure for the benefit of the populations. In the field of navigation, the navigation project currently underway, which constitutes a priority for member states, will make the river navigable from Saint-Louis to Mali. This project is a vector of integration and a strategic factor in the socio-economic development of the basin. All of these areas of intervention contribute for OMVS to the promotion of peace and climate security and constitute adaptation and conflict prevention measures in the region.
Thank you. Then we continue with Jamie. Can you tell us a little bit about how transboundary water cooperation projects are initiated by young climate diplomats in your experience and how they aim to contribute to transboundary water cooperation?
Okay. So the truth is, in the context of the Caribbean, not much work is being done to explicitly tackle transboundary water cooperation. And that's for a myriad of reasons. I'm going to give you a little background about the Caribbean before I get into the reasons. And the truth is, we are made up of many nations, some in Central and South America, which is Guyana, Suriname, and Belize. And then we have many on the island chains. So there's this disjointed, we're literally separated by water, land, and in some cases language. We speak French, Spanish, Dutch, and English in the Caribbean. So there's this disconnection happening. So I want to first highlight some work that is being done between Mexico and Belize. They are in the infancy stages of starting collaborations. And between Suriname and Guyana and some other Venezuela and other Latin American countries, there are also some very minor work in that regard. And also, there are some Caribbean nations that are made up of multiple land masses, so they have to share fresh water within the land masses. So the Bahamas and St. Kitts would be a good example of that. And then my country, Barbados, which has limited freshwater resources, we share water in a very non-traditional way, as in if there's a hurricane, drought, or a extreme weather event, some water can be imported to us. So with all of that in mind, I want to say that the youth involvement is quite limited. And that is because not many people know about this topic. I think I was brought here because I am one of the few people in my island who discuss this topic from a youth perspective. But I think, and even myself here, I need the tools. I need to learn how to engage in these high-level discussions. I need to understand evidence-based strategies to improve transboundary water cooperation. I also want that our involvement isn't tokenized or shut down, because I could make mistakes. We're learning, and so I want that the youth can be empowered to engage actively in these discussions, because eventually we will be in your positions where we have to collaborate across borders. And last thing I want to say is that without the youth, really the vibrancy and the I'll just stop there. Let me just stop there.
I have another question for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? What kind of message would you like to share with everyone here? And would you like to address the seniors at the table to motivate them to be interested in similar initiatives?
That's a loaded question. But yeah, so I have two ways to answer that question. I think that transboundary water cooperation should be apolitical. It should be a nonpartisan discussion, and we should tackle the issue from a nonpartisan perspective. In the context of the Caribbean, we have disjointed efforts. There's like a lack of cross-sectoral communication. So you'll have water being managed through the agricultural sector. You'll have it being managed through the utilities, town and country planning. But what I find is that there's no communication, and so the efforts are disjointed, and that's also translates across country to country. We have a lot of work to do in the Caribbean to start managing water resources together. We can share meteorological data to help us, better withstand the effects of droughts and hurricanes. And we should also do more meaningful public participation, where people are actively engaged in the discussions, where we speak to the people on the ground who are tackling the issues or being impacted by the issues. So the people literally laying pipes, or the people who use the water for for subsistence. Yeah, I hope that answered your question, but I'll stop there.
Came very far. Thank you. Maaike?
Yeah, thanks. Dirk, you just called me a senior citizen, but then Jimmy thinks that we don't make mistakes. So I think that's kind of even. We do make mistakes, Jimmy.
Very good.
They're ageless.
Maaike, how can we better mainstream transboundary water cooperation into global climate processes to achieve also peace and security? And what is the experience of the Netherlands in this dimension?
Yeah, let me say a few words about the Netherlands domestically, then about the role of the Netherlands in international water cooperation and what we can do in climate events. Like a lot of countries, the Netherlands actually is part of 4 international river basins, and it's a tiny country, right? And we're always the most downstream riparian because we're a delta country, so depend on the upstream riparians. We're a member of the Scheldt River Basin Authority, a member of the Eems River Basin Authority, a member of the Meuse Basin Authority, and a member of the Rhine Commission. On the Rhine Convention, I think it's a good example of how transboundary river cooperation is a cornerstone of the post-Second World War peace in Europe. Of course, you know the European Union and the transboundary commissions are less known, but it's also a very important building block for this. So the Rhine Convention, let me read out the country so I don't cause diplomatic incidents here. The Netherlands, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Switzerland signed the convention soon after the Second World War. It's interesting that all these conventions have a different thematic scope. We just heard on the Fleuve Senegal, it's very much about hydropower. The Rhine Convention is very much about water quality because there's pollution in upstream countries that harm downstream countries. And I think the convention is a good example of how you can prevent conflict and sensitivities between countries. Because in 1969 and in 1986, we had severe chemical and pesticide accidents with very big water quality implications, where drinking water downstream was no longer drinkable, there were public health risks, and the convention offered, we had repaired the roof while the sun was shining, had the trust and the conflict resolution mechanisms to address that. As the Netherlands, we are happy to share our experience on transboundary water cooperation. We're also very happy to learn from all of you because there's many good examples of river basins around the world. We're active in water diplomacy. We're the water champions together with the Republic of Tajikistan here at the COP. But we also, as many of you know, organized the UN Water Conference in March. It's very interesting to see about how many of the actions in the Water Action Agenda are related to transboundary river basin management. Also transboundary aquifer management, let's not forget that. And it's actually not such a surprise because 3 billion people worldwide actually depend on transboundary water resources. What can we do in climate events? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that all these promises, all these commitments are implemented, because it's nice to make big speeches as conventions, but the real action is in the countries, in the basins. First, I think we need to make sure that climate adaptation gets the right attention. Somehow these COPs always focus on climate mitigation, which is important, but adaptation is important, and we need to explain how water is the engine of climate adaptation. So we're on the map, we're on the political agenda. Secondly, with that, it means that we need to make sure that out of the climate finance sufficiently goes to climate adaptation, and we also need to recognize that the type of financing you need for adaptation is different than for mitigation. If we talk about transboundary basin management, this is a classic public good. It has huge economic benefits, but it's very difficult to translate these economic benefits to financial revenue streams. You cannot tax for it, you cannot send people a bill for their basin committee. So we need to make sure that the type of money that flows into climate adaptation and into water management is right. It's patient capital, it's not too expensive, because these are long-term investments. Last point, I think a lot of transboundary water cooperation is actually done behind the scenes. That's where the real work is. So at these kind of big conferences, we need to give people the stage, we need to celebrate success, but we also need to realize that we need a little room somewhere where people can actually informally talk, because that's where the work is done. And we need to combine that public diplomacy, putting this topic on the table, with facilitating more quiet conversation between riparian states. So we repair the roof while the sun is shining.
Thank you very much. I'm just finishing my notes.
Yeah.
Good. Then we continue with Aleš. Aleš, Slovenia is a leader in promoting transboundary water cooperation. What is the experience of Slovenian transboundary water cooperation and its connection to peace, and what are the benefits to national governments from joining the UN Water Convention and the objective of advancing climate security and peace?
Thank you again, Dirk. Indeed, Slovenia is a promoter of transboundary water cooperation, and we have believe in this because we have a great tradition of transboundary water cooperation, similarly like Netherlands, which was just spoken before. We do have transboundary water cooperation developed on bilateral levels with all the neighboring countries, which are basis for the transboundary bilateral commissions on water management. Then we cooperate on sub-regional level with the International Sava River Basin Commission, at the regional level with the International Commission for the Protection of the Danube River, and as you might know, we are a very active party on the level of the Water Convention in Geneva, where we are taking over the presidency of the convention next year in October. Beside these well-established administrative processes, I would like to mention that during the Slovenian presidency to the EU Council in 2021, we succeeded we managed to agree about the EU Council conclusions on water in EU external services, where the transboundary water cooperation is mentioned many times, of course. Beside the Water Convention presidency I already mentioned, I would here add also that Slovenia is one of the core countries of the Transboundary Water Cooperation Coalition. Please mind these words, the Transboundary Water Cooperation Coalition. You can find this on the internet. It was established in last year in Paris on the UN Groundwater Summit. Now, next to this, I would like to say that we have concrete experiences in terms of peace or water and peace related to transboundary water cooperation. The first one is our first bilateral agreement with neighboring Austria. As you might know, after the Second World War, based on the Austrian I would say a state agreement signed in 1955, Austria became a modern republic, and soon after, we signed the agreement on the Drava and Mura River. So in the same year, practically. That means war is connected with peace and vice versa, and the water, of course, in between. And then the next one, it's a more modern one I have to mention here, is the framework agreement on the Sava River Basin, which was signed in 2002, only 7 years after the end of the war in the Balkans. And it's in fact precondition for the International Sava River Basin Commission establishment, which is one of the, I say, global good cases of post-war region-based river basin organization, very successful also in terms of getting sources from World Bank and so on. Next question I would like to answer shortly, of course, because the time is scarce to you, is what are the benefits for national governments to joining the UN Water Convention? I would invite you all to find this publication on the internet. We published this 3 years ago. It is about frequently asked questions on the 1992 Water Convention. It's one of the very good, jolly good publications of the Water Convention available on the internet site. And it contains all answers on questions you always wanted but never dared to ask about the Water Convention. So not to invent new things, what is written here in the publication about the benefits are support to the achievement of the SDGs, the improved management of transboundary waters, the contribution to the international and regional peace and security, support from the country community of parties, access to financial assistance and donor cooperation, improvement of water management at the national level, support to bilateral and basin cooperation, advice and sharing of experience, recognition by the international community, developed institutional platform, solid international legal framework, and so on. Just to mention, at the moment, though, there are in fact 42 core group parties to the convention 1992, but since 2015 the convention got the power to get across the pan-European borders to become a planetarian one. And since then 10 new countries joined us, mostly from sub-Saharan Africa, and 10 more countries are waiting to join us. So we are expanding, and we are looking forward for new member states to join us, so everyone who are still not the members are invited to visit us and join us. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, and I'm glad to know that there is a frequently asked question categories out there that answers all our questions. That's great to hear. Good. So then we do one final question for the panel, and afterwards I will come to you to see if what your questions are and what the responses of the panel will be to that. So my final question to my panel, and I will start again here on my left-hand side, or right-hand side. Left? Yeah, I'm always confused between left and right because I'm an ambidexter. What is the most critical recommendation that you want to make to the high-level panel session this afternoon on transboundary water cooperation for climate and peace?
Thank you. Considering that climate change is a global issue and that adaptation requires international response and efforts, I recommend and encourage the creation of many transboundary water corporations. The lack of the TWC can result in significant cost and major risks and act as potential sources of transboundary or regional instability. In this regard, there is need to address the root cause of water-related conflicts, which is also points at the creation of the TWCs. For example, we have the Songwe River Basin, whereby the governments are working together in power generation, which is hydropower. We have 90 megawatts on one side and 90 megawatts on the other side. And then we also have the local governments working together because there's schools, hospitals, roads that have to be built. And so we bring in people together to light up the countries, both countries, and be able to sell off to others that need energy. But besides that, then we've also got arable land on both sides that we can plant, irrigate, and feed our communities in those areas. We have like Songwe has 500,000 people that would be in that immediate area, but will be able to service almost 2 million people in the surrounding areas, in the villages across there. And if we go into phase 2 of the project, we're talking about 80,000 hectares, which will be now become the breadbasket, literally, for those areas. Maybe 3 or 4 countries can benefit from that. So transboundary water cooperation is very important for us to collaborate and for our governments to, be able to some sanity when it comes to transboundary waters, because there's a lot of fights and wars even start because of transboundary water problems. So I would just advise that coordination, collaboration, and of course everything to do with gender comes into play. So, and as women, that's our main focus is pushing gender, so that we as women are in higher places. Because if it's only the men that are ruling in the water sector, then we don't get the attention we deserve, because it's the women that actually really suffer on the ground with regards to water issues. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Moi, j'ai une seule recommandation à faire dans le cadre de notre rencontre ici. C'est-à-dire, par rapport à la gestion intégrée de l'eau, je crois qu'il faut promouvoir une approche de coopération transfrontalière, impliquant l'ensemble des acteurs autour de l'eau. Parce que l'eau, c'est un facteur d'apaisement, un facteur d'adaptation au climat et aussi un facteur de paix. Je crois que l'approche la plus qui tienne ici, c'est d'amener tout le monde à s'intéresser à cette affaire qui est l'eau. Je vous remercie.
So I have one single recommendation with regards to integrated water resources management, and that would be to promote an integrated approach to transboundary cooperation around water, one that involves all stakeholders as a factor of de-escalation and climate adaptation and peace. And sorry, I lost the end of what you said.
Donc, je dis qu'il faut promouvoir une approche intégrée de
Non,
coopération.
juste à la fin, la dernière phrase.
Vers la fin,
Oui.
je dis l'eau, c'est pour tout le monde, c'est une affaire
Yes.
de tous.
Yes.
Donc, il faut vraiment intéresser tout le monde quand il s'agit de ça.
So water is everybody's business, and we need to involve everyone in the conversation.
Thank you. Yemi?
Yes, to close off, I just wanted to highlight that there are two issues that are currently happening in the Caribbean. Right now, Haiti and the Dominican Republic have increased tensions over the building of a canal. Haiti wants to provide water to communities that need it, and the Dominican Republic believes that the building of a canal may contribute to pollution. And between Guyana and Venezuela, there's been a recent referendum to decide the ownership of the Essequibo region. These are two issues of which I do not have the solutions for. But what I would like to say is that the Caribbean has a shared history of colonialism, a shared present of neocolonialism through tourism and those extractive industries. And we also share the brunt of climate change. We're on the forefront of it. Our islands are disappearing. And so for all that to say, I would like to tell, if there's any Caribbean diplomats here, that we are one Caribbean. Climate change does not discriminate. It doesn't pick and choose which island is going to, a hurricane doesn't pick and choose which island is going to destroy or target. So we just need to come together and behave and act as one Caribbean, and to me that's the only solution, or one of the many solutions.
Thank you. Maaike?
Thank you. Let me support the membership drive of ALESH for the Water Convention. The Netherlands is an active member of the Water Convention, and we really would like to see more members as well. For the message for this afternoon, I think we need to emphasize that we actually have decades of experience of well-functioning transboundary water cooperation. These river basin commissions and other mechanisms around the world have managed to avoid escalating conflicts, have avoided wars, from the Indus to the Nile to the Senegal to the Rhine. So pay attention to the news that is not news. You hear about wars, but think about the wars that are not happening. Think about the conflict that's not happening. Climate change manifests itself in water. We know it will rain more. We know there will be longer droughts. So let's be prepared for when it rains. So let's repair the roof before the rains start.
You're very consistent.
Thank you.
Please, Alex.
Well, I have 3 short recommendations. The first one is about the investment, the second about the trust, and the third about the heritage. Regarding the investment, we agree here that transboundary water cooperation is necessary, and it is a part of contemporary natural resources management, not only the water. Here I would speak also about the biodiversity. And in order to ensure sustainable, stable, and peaceful living on the planet. Here it has to be emphasized that every and any kind of investment, either financial, intellectual, political, scientific, expert, administrative, etc., into transboundary water cooperation will return in increased stability and peace in vulnerable regions. So if we want to increase the stability and peace, we have to invest in it on all possible levels. I listed some of them. Now, the next one about trust is, however potential and possible and modern river basin organizations you have, or bilateral communications you have in transboundary water cooperation, or methods or techniques or whatever you have, you are equipped with, if you will not have the trust, forget about everything. Throw away the transboundary water cooperation. And the trust is not among the institutions, but it's among the people who make the institutions. So if my colleague across the border does not know me, does not in person, does not know me, does not trust me, we will never succeed in our common story about the common transboundary cooperation. So trust is absolute limiting factor. And the last one is the heritage. So until now, let's say for 5 years, intensively we are speaking about transboundary water cooperation. It's more and more important, and we will speak more and more about this. And we learned a lot of this. Now, what is our duty is to put this is becoming a heritage in water management. So what we have to ensure is that to pass this heritage to youth, to the next generations, to learn them. Indeed, thanks God you are with us today. Pass this message to your colleagues. So we need to pass this knowledge. We need to educate the youth and the young generations to communicate about, again, not only water, about the natural resources. Biodiversity is also a critical issue in terms of peacemaking and so on. So this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then it's your turn, the audience. I'd like to see some questions from you to this great panel that we had. I see one question. Can somebody please?
We only have one mic, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I wanted to say that river basin organizations can play a crucial role on climate change adaptation and resilience. And my question to the panelists is, how can we dynamize the support to African river basin organizations to improve water resources management in a context of climate change, to allow them to think together, to work together, to act together for blue peace? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, definitely the problem we're facing with the river basins like transboundary water corporations is financing. So once we have financing in place, then we can, have dams that it's for the protection of the river basins as well, and we can grow from there. But firstly, the main problem and the delays that we have in trying to source those finances, because we'll take one of the transboundary between Tanzania and Malawi. We've been working on it. They have actually been working on it from 2015. We've had to do a new feasibility study. That also costs money and time, and then for the ministries to collaborate and work together. We just need to be able to, speed things up. And now with this loss and damage that has come up at the climate conference, might be able to help us, because there's a lot of funds that have come in now. I've noticed, because Malawi would be the first. I couldn't get a lot of money in terms of in our budget for water, and what I did is I approached a few organizations, and now we're getting about approximately 200 million for the repair of all, like water systems, boreholes that are broken down, and put in, the GPS systems, so that they can, in real time, know how much water is being pumped and when it's broken down, and report to information management system. But all this here it starts with finances. Resources is the problem. Once we have our resources in order, then the cooperation between the governments, we have the political will, we have good governance between our countries, and good relationships. The problem is finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike, before I pass it, Monsieur Bangour, est-ce que vous avez compris la question? Ah, d'accord. Bien, la question c'était sur le fait comment on peut dynamiser la collaboration dans le bassin d'eau en Afrique. Vous avez une réponse à cette question?
Oui, bon, je crois que Par rapport à cette question qui est extrêmement importante, je me sers de ce que nous avons fait chez nous. Quand on s'est mis ensemble, nous nous sommes d'abord dotés d'instruments qui permettent à tous les États membres de se sentir concernés. Parce que au niveau de l'OMVS, par exemple, nous avons une convention qui parle du statut du fleuve. Le fleuve est pour tous les 4 États, ce n'est pas pour un seul État, c'est pour tous les 4 États. Nous avons aussi une convention qui parle de comment financer les instruments, les ouvrages sur le fleuve. Nous avons assez d'instruments comme ça. C'est pourquoi j'ai dit dans mes propos que la priorité des choses, c'est de se doter d'instruments qui vous permettent de dire que vous êtes ensemble. Chez nous, par exemple, nous avons un organe consultatif, c'est vrai, mais qui prévient des problèmes qui peuvent survenir dans la gestion de l'eau. C'est la Commission permanente des eaux, qui se réunit chaque année pour définir les niveaux de prélèvement qu'on doit faire sur l'eau. Et ça c'est valable pour tous les États. Personne ne se met en dehors de ça. Qui dit comment est-ce qu'il faut agir, comment est-ce qu'il faut prélever, Cette commission, et c'est une commission mixte qui se réunit, je crois, 5 fois dans l'année. Tout ça, ce ne sont pas des choses que nous faisons parce que nous voulons le faire. Mais quand vous vous mettez avec des gens pour exploiter une ressource qui vous est commune, il faut que vraiment vous définissiez les règles de base au début. C'est ce que nous avons fait. C'est pourquoi l'OMVS est toujours cité en exemple. Ces derniers temps, beaucoup d'organismes transfrontaliers de bassin viennent chez nous pour s'inspirer de ce que nous avons fait pour que nous réussissions réellement dans la gestion de l'eau en paix. Ce qui représente je ne veux pas dire la guerre, mais ce qui représente assez de problèmes dans d'autres régions. Merci.
Okay. So that's a very important question, and what I can explain, what we've done is the importance of the instruments that these member states, first of all, feel concerned by the question, and that they come together and use the instruments to say that we are connected and work together. Another question is related to the finance, but the idea is that if we come together, then we can prevent the problems in the case that the extraction of the water resources increases. We come together to talk about how to share it equitably, and we have a mechanism that enables us to meet 5 times a year to talk about how to share the common resource. We've been identified as a very good example that inspires others from what we do, and that as a mechanism to promote peace in the region.
Thank you. Meike?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I think that some of the river basin organizations in Africa are the most dynamic in the world. So I think it's not only about making the African organizations more dynamic, but I hope that the Africans can help to make organizations in other parts of the world more dynamic, because I think there's really best practices, and we've heard about that from the African members of the panel here. I think financing is important, financing from all sources. These are public goods, so for a lot of it will have to be patient public capital. And that's not only international, it's also national. And I think the very difficult political questions about subsidy reforms in agriculture, in energy are really part of this. Over $600 billion per year goes to Africa, to agricultural subsidies. Those are subsidies that contribute to depletion of groundwater resources, surface water resources, to the destruction of forest. And these subsidies not only need to be reformed so that they don't have harmful consequences, but there's also a lot of money available there that we can use better for climate adaptation. I think we also need to look at international public financing, and I think there it's about the volume. It's also about accessibility and ease of accessing these funds. I worked at the World Bank for 17 years. I worked a lot with regional organizations, OMVG, one of them, to access financing. It's extremely cumbersome. It takes a decade. And especially because these MDBs work on a country basis. Doing regional projects is cumbersome. It's possible, but it takes a lot of effort from everybody. And because they work on a project-by-project basis, so we need sector approaches, we need regional approaches, so more money, but also more accessible money, and also reforms to make national public financing available for the right causes.
Thank you. You want to?
Yeah.
Yeah?
If I may.
Yeah, of course.
I would go back to the Water Convention's work, and I would just like to, based on the question from the colleague, announce that, of course, one of the working bodies of the Water Convention is the Task Group on Water and Climate, which is led, in fact, by Netherlands and Switzerland. And it's very successful in terms of the content it is promoting, and I invite you all to follow the work of this task group. You can find it at the Water Convention's internet site, and it can be also a booster for the cooperation, in this case of African river basin organizations and their involvement into the water and climate tasks and issues. So we are in fact boosting these processes too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I'm turning back to the audience and see if we have yes. We start with this gentleman here.
Bonjour, c'est Ahmed Silla de l'OMVS. Moi, je voudrais juste dire que pour répondre à la question relative au financement qui constitue la pierre d'achoppement de tout le système, je pense qu'il faut, avant que le déluge ne commence, et pour réparer les toits, il faut justement qu'il y ait la définition d'un certain nombre d'objectifs réalistes, d'une part, et aussi constituer un certain engagement politique et aller ensemble vers les bailleurs de fonds, définir pour cela une stratégie et aller jusqu'au bout pour atteindre cet objectif-là. Je pense que ce sont les deux choses les plus importantes. Une stratégie et aller ensemble avec l'engagement politique nécessaire. Merci.
Thank you.
So first of all, I agree with that the finance situation is the foundation of this conversation. But I also believe that there's a need to create realistic objectives that we can all work towards. But most essentially, the political engagement and commitment to advancing these issues. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think there was another question here. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Throughout the panel, a few legal instruments were mentioned, but I'm wondering in particular in relation to groundwater, if you think there is enough legal instruments or that are clear, yes, just clear enough on the issue of groundwater. What is missing there, if anything is missing, really?
Thank you. Let me start this one. At 2 or 3 years ago, there was a discussion on the level of international fora if there is a need for a special convention on groundwater, and at that moment the answer was not yet, not really. The existing international legal framework is enough for covering the groundwater topics and issues. And now again, I have to go back to the Water Convention as I'm the most familiar with it. Water Convention covers also the groundwaters, the transboundary aquifers. In fact, we just started a huge process with a global workshop on conjunctive management of transboundary surface waters and groundwater. So at the moment, there is, I would say, no practical need for more in-depth view into the groundwater as we have. Maybe in the close future we will discover that we need more go more in details, but at the moment not. On the point of the political will, there is no, at the moment, I would say no movement, no suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, probably on both questions. On groundwater, groundwater in the end is not so different, and surface water, it flows from one country to the other. So I think the legal system doesn't have to be that different. But it's very easy for a riparian country to misbehave on groundwater because it's not visible, it's in the ground. And that's why we don't have, so thanks for your question, because we need to put much more emphasis on aquifers and international aquifers, because that's where the really bad stuff is happening. And we have a huge problem of groundwater depletion, of groundwater pollution, and we really need to stop that. So the legal toolbox is good, but we need to apply it much more stringently and make it much more important. So we also take that to the high-level panel, Dirk. Sur la question de monsieur de OMVS, je crois que c'est très important, non, l'engagement politique et une lobby vis-à-vis les bailleurs de fonds. Je crois que dans cette semaine, il y avait une présentation de plan d'investissement africain pour l'eau, et c'était un bon début de ça. C'était très intéressant dans la délégation néerlandaise que des gens qui ne travaillent pas sur l'eau, qui ont écouté la présentation du plan d'investissement africain, ils m'ont dit c'est impressionnant, on n'a pas vu ça dans des autres secteurs dans le COP, qu'il y a un leadership africain avec de claires idées et pas seulement une question est-ce que vous avez plus d'argent, mais aussi de planification, comment augmenter le financement public et privé africain même. Pour ça, je crois que ça, c'est une bonne idée. Je sais qu'il y a plusieurs chefs d'État qui sont impliqués dans ça, mais on doit faire plus de ça et vraiment augmenter l'attention des bailleurs de fonds et de niveau politique sur ces questions importantes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was asking the same question, and one of the delegates told me that they actually have dams that are not that are very poor, like it can sip for recharge. But you have issues like that where I come from. It's in the low veld, and we have sugarcane factories there, and the sugarcane. The company actually built a dam, and they said it was for protection of the crop. But that dam ended up killing 27 people with the flood. So it has to, now what I look at it as the water resource authorities that are being set up around the world should actually come together and look at how we look at aquifer recharge, groundwater recharge, because that's another issue that's obviously invisible to the naked eye, but it's going to be an issue, going forward, because we're using so much of it right now, especially in our rural areas where we do not get from the lakes and the rivers into treatment plants. We just go straight into boreholes and work from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Et si j'ai bien compris la question, il s'agit de savoir l'exploitation de l'eau souterraine.
L'instrumentation.
La coopération internationale par rapport à la gestion de l'eau souterraine. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire par rapport... Je crois que l'eau, quand on parle de l'eau, d'abord, il s'agit de la même ressource, qu'elle soit souterraine ou qu'elle soit de surface, c'est la même ressource. La manière la plus simple d'aller vers une exploitation apaisée de l'eau souterraine, on ne peut pas faire autrement que ce qu'on a fait, par exemple, pour les eaux de surface. On peut peut-être même aller un peu au-delà de ça, parce que dans notre zone, il y a de l'eau souterraine du Sénégal, de la Mauritanie qui passe par le Sénégal. Nous nous sommes mis ensemble avec notre consoeur organisation, c'est-à-dire qui s'occupe de la gestion de l'eau du fleuve Gambie. Nous nous sommes mis ensemble pour fédérer nos efforts et assurer le secrétariat par rapport à la gestion de cette eau. Je crois que, quelle que soit l'eau, qu'elle soit souterraine, qu'elle soit de surface, la gestion, d'abord, il faut avoir une coopération saine et sincère par rapport à sa gestion. Si on a ça, on peut aller de l'avant. Et franchement, par rapport comment dirais-je, à la situation qui se passe chez nous, ça se passe de commentaires. Aujourd'hui, l'organisation pour le fleuve, pour la mise en valeur du fleuve Sénégal et l'organisation pour la mise en valeur du fleuve Gambie se sont mis ensemble pour se mettre au service des États pour lesquels elles ont été constituées. Et ça, je crois que la façon dont on a été cité un exemple pour la réussite dans l'exploitation de la gestion de l'eau de surface, je crois que ce serait la même chose qui se fera pour ce qui concerne les eaux, les aquifères.
Okay.
Je vous remercie.
So in my view, it's the same resource either above or below ground. And the easiest way to manage them is the same as you would manage surface waters. In our case, we, together with the OMVG for the Gambia, have federated our efforts to secure all waters. And in terms of management, as long as you have a sincere and healthy cooperation, that is the basis for everything. So cooperation together, these organizations can then serve their member states, and it's an example that we would like to apply broadly.
Thank you very much. I'd like to see if there are any further questions from the audience. Yes?
Thank you. Well, I have two questions, and you can choose which one you prefer. So the first one, since today it's Peace and Health Day, whether transboundary organizations in your region also cooperate on health? And the second question, how to bring transboundary water cooperation to negotiations, to climate negotiations? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, on your question about health, definitely we do cooperate, especially with, for example, we had an outbreak of cholera, which was the worst outbreak we've ever had in Malawi. Most of the patients were also coming from Mozambique. So our health care systems, like in the rural areas, they don't have so many like clinics. So the ones that are closer to our borders would cross over and we take care of them, because whatever infections are going around in those areas affects us, and sometimes also our infections affect them. So in that area, when it comes to health and collaboration, I mentioned that we, in our river, in our corporations, where we have the transboundary organizations, we work with from clinics to roads to schools. So it's across sectors. You're talking about local government, energy, health, education. So we work across the board. It's government to government. So we include everything. Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to respond to those questions? No? Okay, I think then we can conclude this part of the session. I want to thank my panelists very much, I think, for a very good discussion. And Yami, I want to especially thank you, because at the beginning you said you were a bit nervous. I think you did great. I mean, I think in that sense you're a great example for us all. So I can promise you for the future, there is no reason for you to be nervous. You did excellent. Yeah? Very good. Okay, then big applause for my panel. And then we continue with the closing remarks, and I'd like to give the word to Ms. Petra Kesman. She's the head of Department for Global Challenges in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia.
That was a very interesting panel indeed. Thank you. To me, it sounded like a very important reminder that there is no global peace without effectively cooperating on water issues, and at the same time also an important reminder that there is still an important gap between the awareness of this importance and the actual level of real cooperation. We've heard a lot of good examples of transboundary water cooperation from different countries: Malawi, Senegal, Barbados, Netherlands, and Slovenia. What we've heard is that we really have years of positive experience, we have decades of good practices, and that this is the heritage that has to be built upon and passed to other generations. The message that came out very strongly is the importance of timing, that transboundary water cooperation should be part of political foresight, of prevention, that investing in water cooperation is really investing in peace. But that at the same time, it's never really too late, that even when the context is fragile, when the conflict is out, when the trust is left, that it is exactly the water cooperation that can present an interesting and very unique entry point into dialogue between parties that are in conflict. So what can we do to boost the transboundary water cooperation? Many elements were mentioned. Probably the number one was the Water Convention. Aleš gave us good news. There are new countries acceding to it. So let's encourage really more and more parties to be part of it, to really make it one big global effort. Important also to have bilateral and regional agreements, obviously, institutional settings, and very important not to forget about finance. Obviously, WASH in general needs more financing, but we should really make sure that there is financing that is really targeted or kind of earmarked for transboundary purposes, and that we also find enough of financing in the climate budget that goes to transboundary water cooperation purposes. A very important reminder also on the importance of multi-stakeholder dialogue, to include really different groups and different sectors. Special importance given to women, obviously, to youth, to children. And yes, I think this is it. We will continue actually with, speaking of youth and children, we will continue with a closed-door workshop on the importance of education. Mrs. Hineken mentioned the importance of having also these closed-door dialogues, not only the public diplomacy, so yeah, we're combining both. So thank you also from our part, and yeah, stay tuned and stay here till the end of the day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bedankt.